The plague had arrived to a gray sky. The day the children started to change appeared like a winter's day. The sickness was slow and ugly, though it warped the children quickly. One moment they would be playing together, and the next they would be on the ground, spinning on their backs with their arms and legs jutting out, as if they had suddenly become overturned cockroaches. Because it stung. More than anything, it stung them to have boils suddenly push up from under their skin, rubbing past their cheekbones and narrowing their eyelids near shut as they squeezed folds of skin and muscle. In summer, not that many children were used to tears. But now the wetness they felt had only a little to do with their sweat, the usual sweat they sweated and ignored as they played, so gleefully, so recklessly, that if they were ever to grow into adults, they would think of it all as one long summer. Their memory would turn their playtime into a looping century of play under the sun, a century they would have cut an arm off to revisit. But when the boils began to mark their skin, they were forced to pay attention to new liquids. Their eyes gave out sudden, raw tears, even though they were more scared than sad, at least at the beginning, at least on that day, when the wind suddenly blew in a tuft of ashen clouds over their playday. The sting started at their eyes. Are tears made of vinegar, they wondered, but then it spread to their entire face. This quick thunder of pain was also new. It had been a mistake for them to think that the first jolt would have been the last. Because after the boils had broken out on their faces, more than one shock tore through their newly misshapen heads. It shot out from their eyes to their jaw. Some unfortunate few even felt it down their necks. Their bodies didn't permit them to do otherwise. With each new stab, they felt more and more deeply, widely wounded. And in a balletic moment, they suddenly rose from the ground, bouncing like insects on a carpet billowed by the wind. To their horror, they discovered that the transformation had robbed them of their screams. They wanted to scream like a thirsty man wants a sudden draught of water, but their throats refused to cooperate. It felt as though they had been force-fed tiny bricks. The only noise that attracted any adults, far too late, was the noise they made with what was left of their bodies. They kicked at pebbles and rocks with their arms and legs. It was all they could do because their faces had become something else, something they couldn't know as their own. The adults who suddenly met them, they, screaming freely, they, men and women gushing out free tears and slapping their immaculately human faces half shut with open, desperate palms, could know nothing of their real pain. All they saw were writhing monsters, and all they could do was dive in. Just as the children had ceased to be themselves, instead melting into a monstrous mass that shared a common emotion, the purest desperation any of them ever felt or will feel. The adults plunged in as a single arrow. Each parent begged fate to help them find their child. They begged that the instant telepathy between parent and child would not break now, when they needed it the most.